Alright, hello ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Legendary Content Titan channel. If you're seeing this is actually recorded through my Twitch. This play session that you're seeing right now, I believe this is it is a stream that I did. I forget which one, I've done quite a few now. But yeah, if you haven't been keeping up, there's a lot of Twitch content that I've been making. Been highlighting some stuff, making sure that it saves. And yeah, so a lot of cool stuff I've been putting on Twitch. I think I've been playing a lot of Paragon. Been playing a few games of Predecessor here and there. Now the title of this video, now that that's all out of the way. Paragon versus Predecessor, right? It's been a huge debate as they're using the same concept, well, yeah, the same concept art from, Paragon back in 2019. I think it officially released either 2016 or 2017, something like that. I might have been 2015. I want to say it was 2016, though. I think it was 2016, came out 2016, around that time era, and it ended at 2019. So yeah, Paragon had only, I think, a 3 to 4 year life cycle, pretty short for uh, what was at the time a pretty good MOBA, um, an amazing MOBA, really. And now these two games are kind of competing for the rights of, they're kind of competing in the sense that, they're using the same characters, they're using the same abilities. They've added their own heroes as well, each to their own uh, uniqueness and what they want to go for, sort of deal. A lot of different aspects of both games, despite them all using, despite them using the same characters and everything, they feel very different. Um, and they're kind of in this battle between each other for which game is going to last, as one of them eventually will have to eliminate the other. It's just how it is. I know people don't like to hear that or refuse to compare them for a sense. But let's be honest, they have to be compared. I mean, whether you like it or not, they have to be, because of the fact that they are using the same characters, and with them using the same characters, the same abilities, even the same type of play style in some aspects, you have to compare them. They're competing, you know. They're competing in the MOBA era, basically. So, yeah, they had to be compared, and that's what this video is about. So, Paragon. Um, so I've been playing Paragon a lot more than Predecessor. I've only got Predecessor a few days ago, so this video may not be the fairest to Predecessor. But I'm not going with a biased approach. Definitely not. I'm being completely neutral in this. Um, but comparatively speaking, though, I do have only 16 hours or so in Predecessor, and I have about 400 in Paragon. So it is a major difference, but I'm also getting my resources from both, my own experiences and what other people have said, and it's unbiased. So please just try and stick with me here. Um, and I've played both games and I've enjoyed both games. They are both enjoyable games. All right, they're both successful in their own way, as like development wise. They're both doing pretty well at the moment, I'd say. Coming up with regular updates, more so from, I think, Overprime than Predecessor. But Predecessor is still, it still has a knee up. It definitely still has a knee up. Has a lot of very unique aspects. Like, I gotta say, as far as the new characters go, right? I do like. I would just say right now, I do think I like Paragon a little bit more. But I do like the characters more for like the new characters, right? I like the new characters more in Predecessor. The new characters are way more unique looking, uh, and just a lot. Yeah, this is a lot more interesting so far. The new carry they came out with looks amazing, kind of representing like a Raven type art style, whereas the other character they added was a dragon scaled warrior looking lizard dude. I don't really know what he is. He just looks cool though. Looks amazing. Um Now they do have less characters than Paragon. Paragon has I think it's around like 39, 39, 40, something like that. They have a little bit more characters. I think it's like six or so characters more, maybe even more than that. I don't remember. I didn't count all the characters. But I do know Paragon definitely has more in both the original cast and the new characters in general that they made themselves. They definitely have more characters in general. Um, I think for uh the characters, it's kind of difficult to even compare this because of the fact that there is the sprint speed as you're seeing right now from Paragon's thing. You know, they have the sprint speed. That's not a thing in Predecessor. Predecessor does not have that sprint, and honestly, I kind of like it. I kind of like not having the sprint ability. I think the Predecessor not having it makes it a little bit more strategic for that type of MOBA. It's a little bit, and the thing is too, the cards slash consumables are far less rewarding for Predecessor. Meaning, like, you won't be able to stay in a fight for as long as you would be in Paragon. Like Paragon, you can either use like insane lifesteal items, nano machines. Their consumables are even really good. I mean, there's a lot of items in this game that allow you to be in the fight a lot longer than Paragon, or sorry, Predecessor. You're going to stay in the fight a lot longer because there's just so much. Uh, there's just a lot of resources available to you, honestly, and with the fast pace of the game, um, with a fast paced comparison, Predecessor focuses more around the farming stage rather than the big team fights and stuff. Where Paragon is the opposite. Paragon focuses more on the team fight aspect. They focus more on now, and that's not to say that Predecessor does not focus on team fights. It's just the farming stage is a lot more in Predecessor, I would say. It just takes you a longer time to get into the team fights, really. But there's still plenty of team fights. Like once you get past like the 25, 30-ish minute mark or so, maybe not even that far. Like I would say 20 to 25-minute mark. That's kind of where the laning phase kind of drops, and you have this constant team fighting, battles. Um, the one thing that people I see this a lot, and it's a big thing too for me. Time to kill, right? So the team fights. Um, in both games, there's of course time to kill, right? There's like a lot of speculation on which one is faster than the other, right? And for all intents and purposes, you would think that Paragon has a faster time to kill than Predecessor because of the faster game in general, right? And to that, I really can't say, actually. Um, I want to say that the time to kill. I want to say the time to kill is faster in Predecessor, but at the same time, I'm really unsure. Um, it's it's really hard to say. It really is. I think tanks in general in Predecessor are way easier to build. I think in Predecessor tanks are way easier to build in the sense that like you won't just get rushed. Like in this game that you're seeing right now, like I'm trying to go for this tank build, but I can't exactly make my way up there that far because my team's getting pushed. I'm not able, and I'm falling behind my jungles. You can see all my camps are you know full of minions still on both sides almost right now, and it's hard to keep up. It's hard to keep up as a tank, like as a tank in general in this game. It's really hard to keep up with the farm and the pace of the game when you have full tank items. Whereas Predecessor, you can still easily keep up because the game itself is just so much slower. And for a tank, that's a good thing. Supports, I'd say, I think tanks in Paragon are not as good as in Predecessor, as just like I said, they're just able to be rushed so easily at times. Uh, Now, when a tank does get super strong, when a tank does get like up there in levels and items, you know, a tank is pretty strong in Paragon, no doubt. Um, but I feel like a tank, if they don't have like a bunch of items and they don't like, it's just so hard to get there though. It's super hard to get there because you just ultimately result in what just happened. You just get rushed the whole game. Tanks need to be in solo or support. I realize in Paragon, jungle tanks they're not impossible, but they are really hard to manage. If your like let's say for instance, if your team's behind, right, you're gonna get jungle invaded quite often. Now this is a problem because you really can't do much about it because you're a tank. If your carry falls behind, you're doomed. There's no way you can secure your kills that effectively. You can't secure camps that effectively without that much damage. It's really hard for a tank jungle to pop off. It really is. You have to if your carry or mid laners fall behind, even one of them can put your entire jungle at risk of being taken. You fall behind. It's not a good sign. And you can see here, I have a lot of games where I play as a tank. I won a lot of games as a tank. And that's mainly because of solo lane and support. I have never won it. I don't think I've ever won that often with a tank jungle. It's just super hard to keep up with. Um, so tanks in general are definitely a lot nicer and easier to manage with in Predecessor. And they're not completely defenseless against a ranger like they are in this game. Like I feel like a ranger shreds you very quickly in Paragon. Um, Now, like carries shred you very quickly in both games, but even more so in this game in the early stage. Carries don't have the damage output in Predecessor in the early stage to kill a tank very effectively. In this game, they do though. So yeah, it's kind of an issue that I have with it is that there is a lot of people that go solo lane with like a carry, and you struggle for like the first like 5 to 10 minutes just trying to even battle them because they have the damage output, they have the range. You can't do much as a melee tank, despite the solo lane being well, that's what it's supposed to be. It's supposed to be tank on tank action or warrior on warrior action. And you really can't get that feeling when, you know, you really can't get that feeling when you're just getting shot at a billion times and you just can't. It's hard. It's hard. It's hard to make it in solo lane at times because of people abusing the range damage output. You're forced to rush nano machines just to be able to keep up with them, just so you can stay in the lane, just so you can stay in the lane, not to compete with them, just so you can stay in the lane and at least grab the XP. But it's still gonna take you a while to even beat them with nano machines on your side, where you have to constantly. It's a constant back and forth, movement that you have to worry about, having to constantly go back under tower, heal, go back in, get shot a billion times, go back, heal, go back, heal, go back, heal. And yeah, it's really, like I said, the tank will ultimately win near the mid game, as the amount of health and armor that some of the tanks will have, like for instance like Sevrog, Rampage, and Steel, they will be very strong against those Rangers. But I mean, you can see right here someone abusing that system. Revenant. I'm fighting Revenant, one of the weaker Rangers in particular, and you'll see that I just fall behind. I'm just forced to sit here, wait for a minion to go down a little bit, and then siphon them. I'm forced to do this for 5 to 10 minutes. It's not fun. Predecessor makes it a lot more manageable, where you don't have this problem. Now, it's not guaranteed that Predecessor, uh, like you won't be guaranteed success as a tank in there, even if you're fighting as a ranger. But it's a lot more likely than in this game. Especially against a good ranger on this game, it's really difficult for me to do anything. Um, so tanks, yeah, I kind of summarized my tanks on both games. I think tanks in Predecessor are better. They're just able to actually build up a lot more effectively, essentially. That's all I can really say. For which one is better in the late game is really, it's almost impossible to really judge that, as there's just so many characters that are OP in both games. With the item variations being different and everything, it's impossible to really judge that. But it is easier to play a tank. And that's what I think what matters a little bit more. Let's talk about your supports. So between the two games, which one has an easier support to play? I feel like a lot of the same aspects kind of fall into play, where it's just really hard to build up. Because the game is so fast in Paragon. You got the carries, mid laners, and junglers just, they're building up their power so quickly. And it just kind of leaves the supports in the dust in Paragon. And if you're not careful with the support, you'll quickly just be overpowered by just about everything. You'll get killed quite often. I mean, as a support should, I guess, as people say. But in my eyes, it's kind of just, it's not even the support's fault most of the time. It's because they're always so far behind. They just have no way of really keeping up with the game. It's hard for them to battle effectively, especially since there's so many damn blinks, so many ways to get out. Because the thing is, a lot of supports, being like Richter, Steel, well, not several, Richter, Steel, anyone that has like CC of some kind, it's really hard to make use of them when there's so many like, teleports, the portals, the portals on both sides, like it's really hard to make their kits work as proper when there's just so many ways to get out. So many get out of jail free cards, essentially. And that's the ultimate problem when it comes to supports as well. It's just, the game's just so fast, it's rushed against, the time is rushed against them. So it's not impossible for a support to build up, but it is a lot more difficult than it is in Predecessor. So once again, I would say Predecessor does win in the support type of playstyle. Like they're able to build supports a lot easier in Predecessor. Let's talk about the next big guy, the carries. As we're fighting one right now, carries in both games. I'd say it's about equal, honestly. Carries in both games are excessively strong. I don't care what anyone says. They're both excessively strong. They both build up very like Predecessor is a little bit harder for a carry to build up as they have an actual competition with tanks and supports actually being good. However, it just comes back to the whole thing where just the time to build up. Once again, the ADC role is, like I said, it is equal, but I do think in Paragon, I think ADCs are probably stronger / better in Paragon, just because the whole faster paced of the game kind of fits more into their favor, and they're able to shred tanks very quickly because. I mean, what's the tank gonna do if they have like 2 to 3 items ahead of them because they just build up so quickly? Even if you shut down a carry, for 10 minutes of the game, they're still not out of the fight. They can easily come back up and be 10 minutes ahead of you in like 5 minutes, pretty much. I mean, it's insane. It's really hard to keep a carry down from getting powerful, unless it's just like a new player. Not to shit talk them or nothing, but a new player won't know what to do. Like if they're new to the game, they're not gonna know what to do. So, in that aspect, they are in that circumstances. Yeah, the new player is not gonna be able to win the game over essentially. But if they have like a few games under their belt, you know, they'll probably be able to make a good play, even if they have a bad start, they'll be able to come back. It's just how it is. Carries are just really strong in both games, but I do think in Paragon with the faster farming time, with the pace of the game being more in their favor, I do think that they ultimately take the cake for better. Paragon takes the cake for better ADCs in general. Let's talk about mid laners, right? Talk about your mages and stuff, your energy blaster heroes. So for mid laners, it's a little tricky, honestly, to judge them. So it is faster. They can use their abilities more efficiently, I guess. Being able to throw their abilities down a lot faster than they would in Predecessor. As Predecessor is more slow paced for everything, even abilities. Abilities come up slower. It's not just this instant, groundbreaking attacks. It's it's a little bit more to it. I think from what I can tell, I would say on the spotlight that mages are probably better in this game, just because again from the farming thing and the faster abilities makes it a little bit easier for them to manage everything. But on the flip side, though, a mage is still far from bad in Predecessor. Mages are still amazing there too. They're not as game changing, to the point that they can wipe out 4 people at once or whatever crap, like a carry can. But they are they're just fairly equipped. I don't think mages have many issues in both games. I feel like they do their job just fine. I don't even think in Paragon they're OP. There's some mages in particular that I would say are OP, like some of the best mages are kind of overpowered. But even they don't come close to some of the carries, like Doc and Sparrow. Especially Sparrow. Like, Sparrow's nuts. Um, but, like, I think Gideon's probably one of the stronger mages in this game. Being able to, constantly throw rocks with his high cooldowns and everything. It's rather ridiculous, but, yeah, again, it's not as insane as carries. So, really, I think Predecessor is harder to get into with a mage. As you have to be more. I wouldn't say accurate. I just say more. You gotta be more. Take more time into it to really land your shots, make your shots count. Um, because the best way to use your abilities there is by placing your abilities like in the dead center, like having your target dead center with your ability, just so they have less chance to get out of it. Because you do have time to react, unlike in this. Like, you do have time to react in this game, but not really. At the same time, uh, like, you can predict that they're coming in with an attack, but it's very hard to dodge it. Really hard to dodge. Um, so in that sense, I do think it takes more skill to actually be a mage in Predecessor because of that. But that's ultimately just my opinion. So we talked about just about everything: carries, supports, tanks, the mid laners. Let's talk about the jungler, the last one, right? So junglers in both games. Um, this one is rather tricky, as supports, or sorry, junglers in these type of games can be anything. They could be a tank, they could be a damager, etc. So it's rather difficult to say for that, as it just depends on which characters you have equipped. For I will say in general, I think it is easier to be a jungle in Predecessor. I think junglers are a lot easier to use in Predecessor, a lot more new player friendly, as you're not really as forced to constantly go on this ganking succession like you are in this game, because there's just so much less fights happening. And it's not necessarily a bad thing. I mean, maybe for some people it's a bad thing, less fights, but MOBAs are supposed to be a little bit more laid back than what uh I guess what people prefer nowadays. I guess they're supposed to be a little bit more like in the laning phase, you know, start out by yourself sort of deal, and then becoming a team sort of deal. You're kind of meant to get that more satisfying feeling when you finally all come together sort of deal, and actually, take the fight to them. So I do like that aspect, but because Paragon, you're just always in a fight together. It seems like you're always fighting each other. Um. So yeah, I think for new players, I think for new players, jungle will feel better, but for veteran players, like for newer players, Predecessor will feel better, and for veteran players, Paragon will feel better, as you just get that more satisfying feeling of being able to help your team out by constantly ganking. So that's the best way I could really say. So, both games kind of have their ups and downs for both like for all five classes that you'll be playing as. Let's talk about items, right? So, so all the items in the game between the two, I will say, I think Paragons are a little bit better. I think there's just a lot more variation of items. There's just like for instance, like there's just no items in Predecessor. Like if you click, because I was trying to look for an item that would help me with health, magic defense, and physical defense. There actually isn't an item that does that. That does all three. So, and there's also only 5 cards to choose from. That's another thing too. So you have less creative freedom with your characters. There is the starter card that you get for everything, but like it's very limited in all you can do with it. It is good, but it's just very limiting of what you can do. It just you just have less uh you just have less card customization freedom, I feel. I kind of wish they would change that, but if they don't, I'll be okay too with that. At the same time, however, it does make it to where people just having 100% crit is less likely. But at the same time, I do kind of wish that they did have the 6 card thing, as it's I can kind of see the potential what they're trying to go for. And maybe it'll be better one day. Maybe it'll be uh a lot more options, if you will, for that. But I don't know. I kind of prefer having more cards, though, to be honest. So, yeah, I do think the items are better in Paragon's case than Predecessors. So, let's move on to the gameplay itself. This is all opinion based, really. It really depends on what type of MOBA you want to play. If you want to play a more slower paced game that focuses a little bit more on the farming phase, the early stages of the game, right? If you want to focus more on that aspect, get Predecessor. If you want to focus more on the team fights, the over the top gameplay for you know just the rapid succession of abilities, the rapid spamming of abilities, the you know just all that type of stuff. If you're into more hero versus hero action all the time, Paragon's your game. But for like I said, the more slow paced stuff, the early game stuff, and like I said, it's not that you're not with your team in Predecessor. It's just there is just more of a farming stage to it. It's a game that's supposed to take you a longer time to finish. That's a good thing, in my opinion. I like that aspect. Like I said, I enjoy both games, and it ultimately comes down to you as the player which one you want to stick with. If not, if you can't make a decision, play both. It's all up to you. You know, I personally love both games. I like Predecessor and I like Paragon. I think they're both good in their own, you know, in their own ways. I do think I like Paragon more, but maybe it's because I haven't got used to Predecessor yet. Maybe I'm still having to adapt to it, but maybe once I get a little bit more familiar with all the cards and more familiar with the characters and etc., the feeling as well. Maybe once I get used to all that, I will just generally like Predecessor more. As Predecessor does have that more old feeling, like the old Paragon feeling. If you remember Paragon from the Monolith days, that is. If you remember Paragon from the Legacy days, then Paragon the Overprime is gonna feel a little bit more similar, I guess. Um. So yeah, that's totally up to you of which one you want to play. Um. Let me talk about. I haven't talked about the objectives or nothing yet, like objectives slash towers. Let's talk about that. Paragon's biggest issue for me. All right, Predecessor does not have this too much for me. I like Predecessor's towers. I think Predecessor's towers are okay. Far from what I would consider good, but they're okay. But Paragons are even further away. Paragon's towers are garbage. Actual garbage. Especially since there's so many debuffs to them throughout the game. If you get the objectives, like if you get the spirit, if you get that buff, you disable, like, you make their towers, I think it's like 30% weaker for defenses and everything. Something like that. And there's even the prime underling, which makes it to where you the prime underling makes it to where it's basically a free kill on the tower every time. Even if you have high damage, it's more than likely that you'll just be able to take it down. It's almost a guarantee kill, and it's not done in a satisfying way at all. Um. So yeah, I don't know. I feel like in that aspect, it really hurts Paragon a lot for me. Like, I do like the team fights, I do like all that, but the towers being as weak as they are, because and there's only one tower, and then an inhib, and that's it. And it's the fact that it's a guaranteed kill to get the towers down is just really unsatisfying. It just feels really rushed, honestly. Prime is also really overpowered. Prime makes it to where you disable all their inhibs while also ripping apart half their health when you take Prime out. So essentially, you take Prime out, you win the game. Almost. It's practically a free win. And one of the characters abuses the shit out of the system, which you'll see in this game actually as well. Wukong. Wukong is absurdly broken. So, as you know, you can't use abilities on towers, as you can't in any other game. But for some reason, Wukong's clones can. Wukong's clones that come out in rapid succession have no cooldown. They just last forever. They spawn 4 clones dealing damage. And with all 5 of them hitting one tower, it pretty much kills it nearly instantly. Whether it's an inhib, a tower, the core, doesn't matter. He rips it apart within 5 seconds. Even the objectives he tears apart in mere seconds. It is actually busted. Not like late game, not late game. Like, he can do it with like 1 to 2 cards, and he's just ripping a tower apart. It is actually broken. Wukong is a huge problem in this game. Every time you see him, it's a boring ass game, as you're not able to get into team fights as often because of him alone. Because you always have to be at your base. You're always on the defensive when it comes to Wukong, as you can't ever let him get near your base. If you do, you're dead. You lost. It really feels like cheating in a sense, and it's actual garbage. Worst character in the worst character in the game. Period. That's all I gotta say about it. But yeah, towers and objectives are really abused and are not strong. They don't defend you that well either. There's like no point of really defending them. Predecessor's towers are a lot better, as there's 2 towers and inhibs, so you got a lot more protection. They do a lot of damage as well. The durability is about the same as this game. I'd say maybe a bit stronger, just because there's not many debuffs against them like there is in this game. The Raptor objective feels really unsatisfying to even get because you can't see what the hell it does. After you, like, if you misreading it, you have no idea what the raptor does. There's no, like, indicator of what the fuck it does. Unless I'm just unaware of where that is. But that information, for all, far as I'm aware, doesn't exist. Once it pops up and says this raptor does this, and you want to try and check back on it, I don't know if there's a way you can. Um. So yeah, I think objectives and towers definitely do go to predecessor though, despite these issues. As they're just not as brutally punishing if you miss out on them. Because the Paragon's objectives are by far the biggest turning points in the game, especially Prime. I mean, you'll see this Wukong in a minute, I'm sure. Just jump this inhib and just obliterate it. Check this out. Oh, he's about to do it. I was able to knock him away from it though. I think he does get killed here, but normally he would hit it once and he'd be dead, basically. And that's what I have a huge problem with. But anyway, yeah. I do think objectives definitely goes a predecessor, though. I just wish there was an indicator on what the hell the Raptor does once you actually clear it. Because it tells you what the hell it does initially, but there's no way to check back on it to see what all the buffs do. I wanted to see what all the buffs do. I don't remember. Um, Like I know there was one that gives you like movement speed outside of combat. There's another one that gives you like defense or something, but there's no way of saying it. So it's like you can't like see how much it's actually helping you. That's kind of my issue with it. I just wish there was an indicator of what it actually did throughout the match. Besides just the initial thing. Um. So talk about characters. Actually, I did talk about the new characters. I didn't talk about the old characters. So the old characters, um, for how they all feel in play, I would probably have to say that uh I have no idea, to be honest. They really both feel very much alike. Um there's some characters I flat out prefer, like in Paragon, for instance, Greystone. I prefer Greystone in um Paragon. The thing is, the big thing about it is for me, I don't like how you have to. I don't like how you have to time his ult. I mean, yes, it is. It does take more skill, I guess. But the thing is, Greystone's ult was never like a game changer. It just seems very limiting to his ability. Greystone's still good in that game, no doubt, but it just seems very, very limiting. And I just don't like having to press a button. Because the thing is, too, if you get stunned, you're more than likely not be able to press it before you die. And that's what I don't like about it. I don't like how. I just don't like how that feeling is. I do like how he has a fire sword. That's really cool. He has like a little effect on a sword where he just puts it on fire. He's able to slow people down with it. That's cool. I like that. But as far as his ult goes, I really don't like how it's a active ability instead of a passive now. I really don't like that, personally. For Rampage, I don't like how his rock feels. It just feels like it falls way too quick. It's weird. It may be more, I guess, what you would consider realistic, I guess. But I don't know. It just feels very unsatisfying to use. However, I do like Rampage more in Predecessor because his other abilities are all amazing. He has a way better jump than in Paragon. His ult looks way better. He's way bigger, like he should be. And he actually heals a fuck ton. He actually has his passive back where he heals in the jungle. Fucking amazing. I love that. Um, yeah. I think I think Paragon has better characters. For some, like I feel like they have some better abilities, and or Predecessor has better abilities, but I think Paragon has better feeling of some other abilities, I guess. But they're very heavily mixed. You have to really play them both to understand what I'm saying here. Richter feels about the same for both games. I think I like Richter more. I actually no, I do like Richter more in Predecessor. As he gets a passive shield, and he's a lot tankier than in Paragon. That was one thing I was majorly disappointed by, was the fact that Richter was a lot weaker. Like Richter only has 100 more health than Doc in Paragon, and that is such bullshit. Because he is a frontline tank. He is a frontline behemoth. That's what he's supposed to be. He has no way of getting out of a situation. If he doesn't have absurdly insane stats for tanking, he's useless. And at times he kind of is. Um, he needs to have way more health than he does in Paragon. And Predecessor did that perfectly. He has a passive shield, way more health and armor. Just, yeah, way better. Um, so yeah, I mean, honestly, there's great things about both games. I mean, really, there's things about both games that make them good and bad. Um, I honestly, I do like the laning phase though. I really like the laning phase for Predecessor. Um, I feel like the laning phase is just really satisfying. I will say the one thing that I have an issue with is the minions killing, like the time to kill for minions. The time to kill for minions in Predecessor, not like you killing them or nothing. That's fine. No, the minions killing each other. They seem to kill each other way too quickly. You don't really notice that as a damager or even a regular tank, but for someone like Sevrog, you really notice it, as last hitting is so fucking hard. Not just for me, but for this guy too. You can tell me and him are struggling to get last hits here. Out of like 2 waves, I only got about, yeah, 4 stacks out of like, I think it was like 12 minions. I only got 4, and he was behind me too. And I'm good with Sevrog. Like, I'm really good with Sevrog. I want to believe that I'm probably the second best with Sevrog in particular. The first being Grux. I feel like Grux is my best character that I'm, the best with. But yeah, I'm really good at Sevrog. I'm very skilled with him, but it is really hard to just hit a last hit on a damn minion. It's ridiculous. It's just a weird problem that I have. And I feel like tanks in general that don't have like an AoE thing they might have a little bit of tough time last hitting lane minions, as it is generally just hard to hit. They're generally hard to hit. Not to mention with Sevrog in particular, he has such a long cooldown for a siphon, and with mixing that with the fact that it does hardly any damage, and the minions kill each other so fucking quick, it's really hard to land hits. I mean, it's obviously, you can see it's not impossible, but yeah, me and the Sevrog were way more behind than what we should have been. Like I don't think either one of us got our stacks until like the 10 or 20 minute mark. It was actually nuts. Um, yeah. Other than those few things, though, I do think both games. You really just gotta play both. Like I know you probably hear that a lot from people, and I know that you might not want to have to pay for a predecessor. Um, I don't know. I do like the fog. I did. I mentioned that the fog walls are also really good for Paragon. I like the jungles a lot more. How they're designed in Paragon, they look a lot nicer than predecessors. Or other way around. I like predecessor jungles more than Paragons. They just look a lot nicer. Their fog walls are way better than Paragons because you actually can't see through them, and that's how it should be. Rather than you can see through them. Like that's kind of the whole purpose of a fog wall. I mean, yeah, I definitely like the jungles more for predecessor. Um, but yeah, like you can see like how hard it is for me to land to like these last hits. It is just brutal. And like I said, this other stuff I struggle with it too. So I think the time to kill for minions needs to be dimmed down a little bit. Just for tanks to have a little bit easier time to. I mean, it's not that big of an issue if you don't have to worry about lasting as much as like with the siphon bullshit. But dude, a siphon is a nightmare. It's literally a nightmare. I was like, just getting really frustrated with it. Um, but yeah, like as far as like the menus and everything go, um, they're both unique in their own sense. Um, the one thing I will say I don't like about Predecessor as well with their menus, I don't like when you go onto the fountain, it automatically pops up the menu. Like, I don't like that. I kind of want to open up the menu myself because there's those times I had to just go back to. I just have to go back to base and then just get right back out there. I don't like having to close the damn menu every time I go back to the fountain. It's just really frustrating. I don't know if it's like an option to disable that, but it's just really annoying. Just like I said, it's just minor things though. Um, but I really can't give an answer for which one is better. Um, it if like I said, if you want the feeling of if you want a closer representation of the original OG Paragon back in the Legacy days, I do think Paragon will fit that a little bit more than Predecessor, just because of the sprint speed, the abilities are a little bit more intertwined with the OG Paragon than Predecessor. But for the Monolith days, I think for the Monolith days of the OG Paragon, I think Predecessor gives you that more satisfying feeling from that. Um, although um, the legacy Paragon though, like it wasn't like as fast paced as Paragon, so it just depends on your pace of the game. I was actually saying not too long ago, the fact that Fault's another game. Fault was a third game trying to make it through in life, but it got killed. Um, but Fault, I will say between all three of the games, I will say there's very few things that Fault did right, but I do think if you watch my old content, I do think that Fault actually did have perfect the perfect speed of the game. Honestly, the way I see it, Predecessor is a little bit too slow, to what I'm used to. Paragon's a little bit too quick, but Fault was actually just right. The speed was perfect in Fault, I feel. I think the predecessor is a little bit more my speed than Paragon, but I think it'll have to take time for me to get used to it. I think over time I might grow more attached to Paragon or predecessor. Sorry, I might grow more attached to predecessor in time. But again, it's all about how you feel about the game, how fast or slow you want the game to go. I really can't give you a direct answer though of which one's better. It's all preference, as most things are, but especially for this case. Um, it really depends on which era of Paragon you entered in between the Legacy days or the Monolith days. It really depends on that, and it really depends on if you like the faster speed or the slower speed. I definitely like the laning phase a lot more. Like I said, a lot in this video probably. I just really like the laning phase. That's like the biggest thing for me. I felt that in the OG, like in Paragon, it was just way too quick. It was just like you get 5 minutes of farming, and it's just one team fight after another. It's just such a rapid succession, really. Um, and I do like team fights. I play the game specifically only for team fights, practically. And I don't know. It's just I don't know. It really just depends. Um, what else is there to talk about? So I talked about characters. I've talked about items. Talked about objectives. I guess we could talk about the map layout. I definitely don't miss the fucking portals when I'm playing this game. Like I said, there's just way too many get out of jail free cards. Like I don't know if you saw my one stream, but I abused the fuck out of it. Like it was actually ridiculous how many times I got away that I really shouldn't have gotten away from. So many situations that I got away from, and it's just it's bullshit. I should have not got away that many times. And it just comes to the problem that it's just mixing the fast movement speed with the teleporting, the portal. It's just way too much movement. You can get away from so many situations that, like, yes, it's funny, but it makes the game just feel bad. Because you really should not be able to get away from all the things that I got away with. Like, it was so dumb. Like, I was literally going into team fight after team fight after team fight, objective after objective, just constantly abusing those teleporters and movements. Like, I was abusing the fuck out of it. Like, it actually felt unfair. Even for me, and I was the guy doing it. And I felt bad for doing it. But like, it's there, so I'm using it. And yeah, it's a very abusive system, really. Um, and that's really the big thing about the portals. I just don't like the portals. Um, the map itself, I think I do like. I like Paragon's map a little bit more than Predecessor's. Apart from the jungles, like I like the laning. I like the lanes more in Paragon, but I like the jungles more in Predecessor. Really, the best way I can give it to you guys on that. Um, so talk about items, talk about map. I I don't really think there's that much more I could really say in this video. I think honestly, I've gotten a lot of info from other people, and I always asked one question from each person I talked to. I always asked the same thing, and it was Predecessor versus Overprime. Which one do you prefer? And many said Paragon. Many said Predecessor. I had to find out for myself, as there's a lot of reasons to play both, and that's where I'm going to leave it at. There's plenty of reasons to play both games. There really is. Like I said, I do think I do have more fun with Paragon, but I think I'm just not used to it. I'm not used to the slower speed of Predecessor, but yeah, given time, I might actually prefer Predecessor. Um, yeah, I feel like for like the characters and stuff though, there's a lot more characters to choose from in Paragon. As I think I don't remember how many there is in both games, but actually I might be able to check that real quick. Let me just do this real quick. So there is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 14, 21, 28, and then 4, that would be 30. So there's 32 characters in Predecessor. And then in Paragon, oh, I could go a little bit earlier. Okay, so there was, what I say, 32 in Predecessor, and in this game there is 4, 8, 12, 16, 20, 39. So they have 7 more characters than Predecessor. So yeah, seven more characters. I think the ones that Predecessor are missing. I know they added Xena, Mako, Marty, wherever she is, and Adele. They added all 4 of those. Um, and Predecessor added that dragon dude, Darkos. I think his name is. I don't remember his name. I haven't played it enough to know his name, but it's him and that Raven archer person. Um. So yeah, both have a lot of characters to choose from, and their own unique heroes to choose from. You just have to see for yourself which one you prefer. Honestly, um, I gave you kind of some ideas of which one you might prefer based off of, like, if you prefer the legacy style, it probably Paragon will be more to your liking, as the abilities are a little bit more similar to the old style, and Predecessor for the monolith people of Paragon. So yeah, it honestly, there's a lot to it. Both have a lot of reasons to play them. I've talked about pretty much everything I can in this video. My suggestion, I know people probably have said this a lot, but you really do need to get a feeling for both to know which one you want to stick with. I personally like both a lot, though. and I can't come to a conclusion which one I like more. Apart from, I need more time to put into Predecessor, but at the moment I do like Paragon more. But I think it's just because I'm used to it. I think I'm just comfortable with it. So I'll leave that up to you guys. Which one do you want to play? And I definitely suggest you try both. Both are amazing. Both have plenty of reason to play them. All right, guys. This was a long video. I hope you guys stay to it and actually enjoyed and understand what I'm trying to say in this video. And maybe understand why I'm heavily mixed on the two games. As they're just very different. You just gotta really try them for yourself. All right, guys. So that's all for now. And I'll see you guys in the next one. Goodbye, everyone.